Can't wait to taste the beer in here, mate.
Yes. Another pint, another pod.
I'll get him in, mate.
Nice. I'll have a pint. Cheers, mate.
Should we do this?
Let's do it. Welcome back to the Grassroots podcast. This is our first collaboration, really, and we've got Dom Broad joining us. He's got a podcast called Olympic Mindset, which I think is best if you go into that, Dom.
Yeah, so the Olympic Mindset podcast started because I was asked to write a book a few years ago about leadership, and I was very fortunate at the time. I'd been a mentor for a number of different athletes and high-profile sports people, so instead of writing a book, I decided to interview these people and turn it into a podcast, and with the support of Pearson and a few other organisations, it's risen to become number 37 in the self-improvement charts in the UK, and it's been in the top 50 in 25 countries and 4 different continents. So it's been a really interesting journey, and I'm really happy to be here today to support you at the start of your journey.
As you can see, he is big time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you've come to our little podcast, which, as you can see this week, we are at the Cafe on the Hill, probably the best pint around, and apparently the best milkshake in Chepstow, Gloucestershire, Forest of Dean, everywhere.
Spread the word.
So, Dom, you said that you got the Olympic Mindset podcast, but you actually started out in football.
That's right.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I was fortunate enough to spend time at Leicester City and West Bromwich Albion. I also went out to Spain, spent a little bit of time at Malaga. And when it never worked out, I came home, had a few trials at a few smaller EFL clubs. And it really struck home to me that I wasn't going to be in the 0.12 of people that play sport or football in this country and make it to play in the Premier League. And I remember having a really difficult conversation with my dad at the time, and the area that I come from is not particularly known for aspirational things, shall we say. However, there's really hard-working, great people in that community. And as much as I loved being there and I loved being around it and being around my friends, I knew that I kind of wanted the opportunity to achieve more. And especially playing and being around the professional football environment, you get to see a different side of life, right?
I can well imagine.
Yeah. So what I decided I wanted to do was just make sure that I had a profession behind me. I wanted to make sure that I had security for me and my future family. Mm-hmm. And that meant that I had to choose a profession. And ironically, I didn't enjoy school that much. I love the social side of it.
I think I can second that one.
Right? So being good at sport opens up so many doors in school, you know. It automatically
Definitely.
makes school a lot easier for you.
Yeah.
I also had a few older cousins in my school that looked after me too. So, I think going back and becoming a teacher was more about me wanting to make a difference to kids like me. Kids that like sport, like going to school, like having a bit of a normal time, and maybe didn't see the benefits of education and challenging themselves and pushing on for more. So I always knew that I wanted to go back and work in similar communities to which I grew up in. And I used to say to myself, if I can make a difference to one child, then I've done my job. And I was very lucky that I got to become an assistant head really quickly, deputy head really quickly. And then in Wales, they decided to create a new national curriculum.
Yeah.
I began off being part of that, selected as a pioneer teacher, which was basically a select group of teachers that were particularly good at a thing. And within a year I was leading that, and then I was promoted again and became the strategic lead for curriculum reform in Wales. So working with government ministers, working with government bodies and agencies.
God, it's huge.
And I'm going to put you to sleep now, but basically, long story short, I got up quite quickly and realised that I wanted to make sure that I took time to develop myself, understood what it took to be successful, and then passed that on to other people. Because, you know, I'm closing in on 40 now, and I wish some of the lessons that I've learned in the last 20 years I could just pass on to people. And that's where the podcast came from, and that's why I'm really happy to be here with you guys. I know your podcast is a slightly different theme to mine. It's very fun. Yeah, if you haven't watched it already, watch their first one. It's excellent. But I like what you guys are doing, and you know, you've got to keep it up now because I'm on one of them, so you can't quit.
Oh, we're not stopping.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like you say, you wanted to try and give back a little bit, which is what we do really in our
kind of. Like
everything we do is voluntary. So we coach these kids, but it's not just to get our kids into football. It's also to get other kids into football. It's to make sure everyone has an opportunity, and you want to be there. Well, you're being a leader really, which is what your podcast is about, and you want to just try and influence these kids to help them have a better life and maybe spur them on.
And that's kind of why we said at the start, like, if we can get one child or parent into grassroots football,
Yeah.
it's going to make a difference. A
Yeah.
bit like what you said, introducing people. Like, we struggle around here with, well, kids and coaches, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not a very big attachment area, and a lot of teams locally aren't going now. There was probably a few more than there was now 4 or 5 years ago, but the kids just not coming through, are they?
No, well, I've had a big example of that today, actually, haven't I? So one of our teams, parents are probably going to find out about this through the podcast, but one of our teams have entered them into what's called the Mid-Gloss League, and we've been trying to contact them for a while. Don't know what's happened on that front, but we've finally got an email back today saying that unfortunately there's only 4 teams in the under 10s section, so they have asked if that team will go play up a year, which is unrealistic for them, to be perfectly honest.
So why do you think there's been such a drop-off in terms of participation rates in the Forest?
I think coaches is certainly a big...
Yeah, it's down
And
to
I think
volunteers,
it's funding.
Yeah.
Like we were speaking off camera, each coach, on average, I think it costs about over £300 just to get them through their level 1, their welfare, their first aid. Some teams have 3 or 4 coaches per age group,
Yeah, I do.
and that money has to come from somewhere. And for us, our club, certainly, subs doesn't cover that.
Doesn't cover it at all.
And it's a really hard situation. If you put the subs up, there's certain families that can't afford it, but we want to try and encourage kids to play football, and it's almost catch-22. Do you know what I mean? It's really difficult. And we thought that if we could start this, if we could maybe raise a little bit, we could certainly help our local teams.
Yeah, we're doing our bit for our club by we're marking out the pitches now. Like, that saves nearly $4,000 a year.
Yeah.
But that $4,000 a year might pay for a few other things, but you've still got to find the rest of the money in between. But I think another reason is because of where we are, and because people don't know about the area, they send their kids off somewhere else. So they'll try and send their kids to a team in Gloucester to play there, as opposed to playing for Broadwell or Cinderford or Mitchell Dean, Alwood.
Yeah.
The travel's probably the same, but they think that they've got a better chance there. And we'd like to open up the Forest as somewhere where they could have just as big of a chance. There's no academies or anything locally in the Forest, and also it's one of them. You don't get many people. You don't get scouts come by or anything, do you?
It's very, very rare.
Which is the thing. So how did you end up at Leicester?
So I was playing the year up for years, so nobody really knew who I was, and I was short as well. So I've been playing it for a long time because I don't come from a footballing family particularly. They're a rugby family, and I grew up in Cardiff. So my dad started taking me to a football team, Llanrumney United, and because his mates were there, so I played with his mates' kids who were in fact 2 years older than me to begin with.
Really?
So I played 2 years up for a while. Then it became too much for me, so I dropped down to a year up where I played till I was about 12. And then when I eventually dropped back down to my age range, I started breaking goal scoring records. And you know what it's like, you go to school and everybody's like, where have you come from? It's like, I've just been playing a year up, like, I don't know any of you know. So it was a really interesting way of doing it. It also meant I found it a lot easier. I've been playing against really big boys, and you know, 1 year up can make a big difference.
Massive difference. That's what I mean about my under 10s going up to under 11. Whitney's are, but they're a different kettle of fish, and it's sometimes that jump's a bit too big for some people. I think.
And in the pro game or academies, they're starting to bring in something called biobanding, which is basically where they start to group children according to their size rather than their age. So that was something, it was a massive disadvantage to me, but also an advantage because I was playing against these really big kids. So Ramon Caliste, you might remember him, he got signed by Man United, then Liverpool, was on the verge of the Liverpool squad. I was playing 1 year up against Ramon. Ramon was like a man when we were children, and he got picked up by Man United and sadly ended up doing nothing because he was obviously a very talented footballer. You don't get to Man United and Liverpool if you're not. Yeah. But the point I'm making is there were lots of smaller children that were very technically good, but at the time it wasn't maybe that popular. Whereas obviously all the tiki-taka Spanish football came in a few years later, so everybody started going after technical footballers.
Yeah, of course.
And now with everything, there's positions I don't even know how to pronounce. So yeah, football's changed a lot in the last 20 years, but without making myself sound too old, what I will say is the biobanding stuff coming in is really interesting.
It sounds it actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of, if kids are asked to go to like an academy, it's usually the bigger lad, isn't it? It's somebody that's a bit taller, a bit stronger, but you're only a bit taller and a bit stronger for a certain amount of time, aren't you? As soon as you hit 16, everyone pretty much comes to the same sort of size. There's very few that are massive compared to everyone else. So they're only that bit bigger and that bit stronger and that bit faster for a short period of time, really. And that's when you tend to see them get let go, don't you? That's the sad thing. That's what's cutthroat about it, I think.
It is, but then I think as parents, if you're informed, then you can make sensible decisions with your children. So if you've got a really talented girl or boy that is bigger than everybody else in their age range, give them a chance to play a year up.
Yeah.
Because bashing through a team of kids and running around them,
Not teaching you
it
anything.
looks great, but you're not developing skills. You're not developing the ability to find space. You're not developing the ability to move your body and use your body against a bigger person. So I've got children now, I've got 3. And if either one of them, they're probably not going to be very big. My wife and I are both quite small. But if one of them were to buck the trend and be big, I would definitely encourage them to play a year or 2 up.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to develop those skills and struggle and fight for every ball and fight for every opportunity.
Well, they're going to have to later on in life, aren't they? So you might as well get them doing it early.
Well, exactly. Like you said, when it eventually levels out,
They're going to have that advantage if they've already done it.
yeah, it's quite a funny thing. Whenever I do go back to where I grew up, I'm taller than all the lads that were massive compared to me, and they used to give me so much
They
stick.
must be proper
For
short.
being
aren't
short.
they?
Yeah. Not as short as you.
Yeah, I've had it 30 years. I've had that.
Just use your body, you'll be fine. But yeah, it's great. And I love, going back to what you said, I love the work that you guys are doing, grassroots coaching. It's so important. And it's something like 1.5 million boys. I don't know the numbers for girls.
Neither do we, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We'll find that out.
Yeah,
Promise.
yeah. Well, the reason for that is not for any other reason that my brother is assistant academy manager currently and head of coaching at Bristol Rovers, and he was academy manager at Newport County for a period. So he was the youngest academy manager of an EFL club in the UK. He also sits on a number of advisory boards. He's presented at Premier League events alongside Alex Ferguson. So I get to have the insight back into the... Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm a Leeds fan, but I still can respect Sir Alex Ferguson.
I wish I knew that before.
The point is, though, going all the way back around to it, is that like the work that you guys do is absolutely phenomenal, and it leads the kids on a path to achieve their dreams, right?
Yeah.
If you get it right. But you guys need support on the ground to get it right.
I think so. That's support, and
Yeah.
I just don't think people understand just how much goes into it. When you're trying to get a parent to literally just say, yeah, the kid's coming.
That's the frustrating thing.
That's the frustrating thing, and they'll go, he's not really feeling training this week. So it's funny things like that, isn't it? When you think,
Or at this time of year, when they're going in the beer garden, they've had a few and they think, nah. We'll just sit here for... And when you've planned a session, I find that quite annoying sometimes. When you plan a session for 12 kids and then only 9 turn up and you haven't been told, it's almost like thinking on the spot then sometimes.
yeah,
isn't it?
and it's, if you have planned it, thinking on the spot's harder. If you do it off the cuff, kind of like this interview, then it's a lot easier, isn't it? If you know you're doing that, then you know you're doing that, and it's fine.
And if anyone's seen my training sessions, they know I like a lot of cones. So go around picking all them up.
You're one of the guys that likes to bring in the planes, are you?
Oh,
Lined
yeah.
up like a runway.
It's full use.
So go on then, what's your favourite session? Favourite session you'd get to deliver?
I said it before, I really like rondos.
Yeah.
I just love, I like it because the kids are constantly moving, ball work. But I said before, the kids sometimes, for the first 5-10 minutes, find it boring.
Yeah.
And then they start to click on what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit old school. I quite like a lot of pass, move, shoot, because I got some good boys in mind, and I think that we just need to use their strengths, and especially now, bigger goals for us. Any 9 times out of 10, anything over the keeper, we're in.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I'm lucky I've got some really good, talented lads.
Nice. What about you, PJ?
My kids are slightly different, but the drill that I practice the most at the moment is a pressing drill.
Yeah.
So it's like overloading one team. So you'll have 3 pressing, say, to the 5 that have the ball. Both teams are aiming to score, really. But the 5 that have the ball are learning to control that ball, control the play, and use the ball to move around the 3, whilst the 3 that press are coming at them, because we've played a lot of teams where it kicks off and then bang, you've got 3 kids on them straight away. And I want them to get used to that pressure of having 3 people running at them, but just being calm enough to just literally just switch the play or tap it to the side. That's something that we're working a lot on at the moment. And then the other thing, in and out of the cones in a shot, just some basic stuff at the moment, because they are young.
Yeah.
And you can overload them with so much information and just see that it's not going in, and all that really happens is I lose my temper.
Our lot, because we're playing a Europe, we're playing 9-a-side now.
Yeah.
our boys have learned that you can't run up and down that pitch for 50 minutes now. So we have to use that ball a lot more. I mean, we played on the weekend, first 20 minutes, half of them was asking to come off.
Yeah.
And we've had that from going from 7-side. So I run with the squad of 13, 14.
Yeah.
So the reason we're playing a year up is because having 7 kids and almost 7 on the bench is really difficult with game time. So we used to change it around every 15 minutes, change it around. And these kids used to give me a little bit of hassle coming off. Now, they're begging me to come off. So it's funny how it's changed over a couple of months.
Yeah.
But
You could see it as well on the weekend, to be fair. That pitch,
Yeah.
like, because me and Winnie marked the pitches out, we made the one pitch as big as we could make it.
Yeah.
And God, we nearly killed him.
Yeah.
So it's 85 metres one way.
We did play a very good
Yeah.
Ross team. Well, they are probably arguably one of the better ones in under 11s.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to test to see where the kids was, basically.
Yeah.
Because we've played 5 or 6 that I would call development on the cuff of mid, and we won quite comfortably. So I just wanted that test, really, and the test kind of failed.
Well, I didn't
Well,
fail.
But it
'cause
didn't
it's-
fail in that aspect. I mean, the kids, they come off there and they didn't seem as disappointed. I think they just appreciated that, it was a good team. But
Yeah.
the one lad was just unbelievably quick.
Yeah, well, they
And
had
you
a
can't-
couple of
you
couple
find
of
it
good players.
hard
as
to
well.
play against pace sometimes. Like my lad's not the quickest. They're not. Yeah, it was certainly
It was a
a
proper
learning
test.
curve for me.
Yeah, it was a proper test.
Definitely a
wasn't
learning curve for me.
it? Yeah.
But I won't back down from that. I'd like to play another. I've got another one in the pipeline for a challenge, same sort of level, and we'll just try it again.
Well, you can try them again in 12 months as well, can't
Just
you? And then
literally play
it
6
gives
at
you
the back.
it gives you a good point to see
Yeah.
how you've done. Well, I mean, they might improve massively and you get tumped again, but you go.
And it depends where you're doing it, right? Like,
Yeah.
not to be too dismissive of it, but like, who cares who won that game?
Oh yeah.
At that age.
If your kids have learned something and you've managed to take a lesson from it, and say your youngster there, your lad,
Yeah.
struggles with pace, well, that's a lesson for him, to teach him to close angles, to teach him to defend properly, to teach him to shepherd the fast player into a corner rather than letting go into the middle of the pitch. So there are lessons there to teach. You just need to extract them and
What
do
are you
it.
doing on a Wednesday
I was
night?
going to say, should we get a recession?
You can Google it, YouTube it, you'll find it.
I spend most of my time at break time on a Wednesday. YouTube mine.
Yeah.
You've done a bit of management, haven't you? I don't know if you did coaching whilst you were doing the management. You were a player manager at Pontypridd.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. And was that with your brother as well?
Yeah, so my brother is a talented coach, obviously, hence he's in the game and I'm sat here with you two. But
Hey, he's on next week. mate.
he costs a lot more than me, mate. You're not getting in for a lemonade. So Damien had aspirations to become a coach. Like, he knew he wanted to do that. He was really interested and he had an aptitude for it. I was fortunate at the time that I had a decent kind of career in non-league football. So particularly in the Welsh leagues, I was able to contact the club a few leagues below where I was currently playing. So Pontypridd Town was about to go bust. They were going to fall out of the Welsh League, but they historically are a huge club.
Yeah.
So basically all I did was contact them and said, look, if you make me manager, I'll come and play for you, which I know sounds really silly, but when you're dropping 3 leagues to play for a team and they're about to go out of business, they were pretty happy to accept the help. So I went there and I brought a load of my friends that also, like me, got a bit sick of just floating around, going club to club, and some of the lads would go for an extra tenner or all that kind of stuff. And there was never like a community feel. And I'd never really enjoyed playing for any of the teams I'd played for, bar maybe 1 or 2. So I basically brought all the best lads I knew, like best people, hardest working people, and talented players. And
Make a dressing room as much as a team.
Honestly, we were so lucky. We had a boy called Scott Hillman. Do you remember Football Icon?
Yeah.
He got to the final of Football Icon,
Really?
the Chelsea show. You're a bit young maybe to remember, but yeah, he got to the final of the Football Icon. He then went to Lazio on trial. He was at West Ham, Charlton, Celtic signed him, and then he ends up playing like non-league. The story. Everybody knows the story of the lad that was really talented but never quite made it. And we just had a team of those people. We had a boy called Luke Gullick, who played for Trinidad and Tobago, the national team. He'd been at Southampton as a kid and Chippenham Town, I think, and a few other teams that were decent as well. And he came across and played for us. And then a boy called Omar Abdullahi, who played for Blackburn for 2 years as a pro. He also came. So we basically brought all these unbelievable players to quite a low level. And just, I would say it was easy, but it wasn't. The first year was incredibly hard because some good players came,
Yeah.
but we also had some players that weren't so great.
Yeah, of course.
And I never really knew what I was doing because I'd never managed. And my brother was just stepping into coaching, so he didn't really know what he was doing. So you're learning on the job in quite a visible way, you know. There's people coming to pay to watch and giving you criticism, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this isn't just me and my mates. There are people coming to watch, and
and I imagine like coaching those different levels. That's not going to be easy as well.
They're your mates as well, right?
Yeah.
So it was incredibly hard.
So you've got to tell them what to do. Yeah, because they're going to give you a bit of stick as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but then also when you've got the ones that, mates or not, they're not at the same level, and you're trying to do drills, and you just think, Jesus, I don't know how I'm going to get you to understand what he can understand. Why aren't you in the position that he's telling you to be in?
Yeah, and I think that's probably more accelerated mine and my brother's curve in terms of, the managing of a group of lads from all different backgrounds, some on par with you, some older, some younger, and having to learn to manage those people was quite tricky.
Yeah.
It stood me in good stead for my career, mate, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And being organised, and like you said earlier about the planning a session, right? Being committed. You have to turn up every single week. Yeah. So many people don't turn up. And it's not actually that hard, right, to turn up.
Exactly.
But so many people just don't turn up to stuff, or don't try, or don't give it a go. I can't do that, I can't make it. There's always a reason not to, right?
Yeah,
And I found that when you're managing a team, you've got to be there. And I'll be the same, and I am the same with my kids. Whenever they're, thinking, oh no, I'll just stay and watch one more thing on YouTube, or no. You've made a commitment, you're going to go.
Yeah.
Unless you want to quit, and that's fine. I'm never going to force you to do what you don't want to do, but if you make a commitment, stick to it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think it's a good life lesson.
It's a very good life lesson. Yeah, it's standing in good stead for a job and everything, won't it? Too many people now don't.
Well, it's life, mate. You can't just not turn up. Imagine my missus said, oh, by the way, can you come pick me and my mates up? I can't make it. I'm watching another episode. And by the way, I'm at Cafe on the Hill with the boys. But you can't do it. You can't let people down. If you make a commitment, stick to it. And going back to the coaching, my brother obviously learned to coach at that level. And because I'd been out in Spain for a little while, I was able to get a friendly with Valencia.
Yeah.
So we played a really high-profile game there, which was unbelievable. We got to meet Colin Murray and all the guys at TalkSport, and took hundreds of fans to Spain to play against. It was a reserve team, made up of kids and reserve team players. I say kids, 18, 19, 20, cool. And they wiped the floor with us. It was 3-0, but mate, I never touched the ball. Never touched the ball. It was hilarious. And there's a few teams that have gone since to Valencia, but they've never played them. They've just gone out and trained. And
good experience, yeah.
It was unbelievable, mate.
So was it Valencia you played for when you went out?
No. So I went out on trial at Malaga, so I had a little bit of time there.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. It was a very exciting opportunity, and I got to meet some really cool people, but it never worked out. But I'd gone out and done some coaching in Spain, and I met these coaches, and similar to this, right? You make friends with people on their way up.
Yeah.
And they remember it, And I made friends with a group of coaches, and we got on incredibly well, and one of them ended up becoming the guy in charge of everything below the first team. So then when I stayed in touch with him and reached out to him and said, I've got a team, and I kind of exaggerated how good they were.
Did you notice a difference in the football out there, though?
Yeah. They moved it constantly.
Yeah.
They weren't physical at all. Talk about the anchor play that we all are aware of now, because this is 10 years ago. There's a guy just sat, and he would pivot, and everything moved around him.
Such a beautiful way of
It
playing.
was incredibly hard. And they were unbelievable. I remember I did win one ball, and it was Ayala. I ran around Ayala, and by the time I got around him, he turned around, caught me up, and taken it back off me. So yeah, that was my moment in the sun, literally 36 degrees. It was horrendous.
I reckon I could beat him in that race.
I don't think so. If you were going downhill on a skateboard, maybe.
Speaking of skateboards, actually, the Olympics are on at the moment, right?
Absolutely.
And when I first saw your podcast, It's the Olympic Mindset, I thought it was about the Olympics until I listened to it. Obviously, it's a bit different, but you have had some Olympians on there, haven't you? And one of the things that's just come into the Olympics is skateboarding. So how do you feel about the other sports being added to the Olympics?
Well, obviously, you've already name-dropped it, so the Olympic Mindset podcast, available on Spotify and Apple for free. Yeah, I've got to meet some really cool athletes, and although we've ventured out from traditional athletes, we've met some Premier League winners. Wes Morgan, Leicester City captain. Mike Brown, who was a full-back for England. I'm not a big fan of English rugby and Welsh, as you can tell. So, and the founder of Reebok. But ultimately, the point I'm making is that the athletes that I met through the Olympic Mindset podcast, they're not wealthy. They are under extreme pressure. They're publicly scrutinised by, you know, on TV, in the press, by fans sat at home on the sofas like we are doing now.
Yeah.
And they give their lives to a cause and don't necessarily get anything back for it. And I just find it fascinating that you could dedicate an entire life to doing something so well and not care if there's financial reward.
I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Olympians don't make a lot of money at all.
No.
It's amateur.
Yeah.
It's amateur. So actually there was a rule. I don't know if that's changed actually. I should probably know that. But there was a rule till very recently where they couldn't make a certain amount of money. So they get partnerships and sponsorships and stuff. And obviously your Usain Bolts of the world, they're mega wealthy.
Yeah.
But not through sport.
No, that's true.
Humour.
Yeah, exactly. Which is that's crazy to think though, isn't it? Because like my mum's got friends who have kids and they're training to be Olympic swimmers, and they're there. I think they train 4 times a week. So 4 out of 7 days, there's these 2 girls that have to go swimming, and the parents have to alternate. They've got to basically live their life around what the kids.
It's a lot of pressure on a family, though, isn't it?
A lot of pressure on a family, a lot of pressure on a kid, and they want to do it as well. They want to push for that.
It's hard to be good, mate.
Yeah.
It's really easy to be average at anything. You don't have to do anything.
No.
So yeah, if you want your kids to have success or have an opportunity to be successful, whatever that looks like, and it's not about winning, like, which I pulled you up on it earlier. Like, who cares if they win? Like, what do they take from it? So if those kids are swimming 4 times a week and going out early and learning to commit to something and being disciplined, like those life skills are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it comes full back to you guys coaching and doing the work that you do. I've got so much time for it. You know, if it wasn't for grassroots coaches like yourselves, these kids wouldn't be able to play football in the forest.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wouldn't have been able to come through and have the opportunities I had if my dad hadn't committed and he didn't know what he was doing. He learned to, and he actually became a really good coach, and he's a very knowledgeable football man now. But when I was a kid, he was just the person that put the time and effort into taking me wherever I needed to go. And it's easy, right? Because I was his son. But coaching other people's kids, I've got so much time for it. So, yeah, I'm really glad you guys are doing it. And I think sometimes parents need to respect that and appreciate that it wouldn't happen. Their kids would just be sat in on a computer doing nothing or being around the house climbing the walls like my kids would, you know, if they didn't have those coaches taking them out, burning the energy, teaching them a skill, you know, modelling discipline, modelling good behaviour, modelling respect. So good for you boys. And I hope that the coaches watching at home recognise that the majority of people respect and appreciate it. And any of those loud people that sometimes criticise or don't return a text, ignore them. You can't please everyone, mate.
No, you can't. That's the be all and end all of it, isn't it? Really, you cannot please everyone. We said it about the FA with the leagues and with, like we said, they want more money for safeguarding courses. Like everybody's got to do this extra safeguarding course, which is like it needs to be done. Granted, I think everyone should learn about it and everyone should know how to protect the kids. But it is more and more money, and I think that whilst they're doing something to keep everybody else happy, it does mean that some clubs end up losing out, and people don't, like, I've had a lot of people say, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to spend 30 quid on that and then invoice a club, you know? And it's hard to explain to somebody that doesn't want to do something why they have to do it, isn't it? It's a real difficult one for me.
Yeah, but like I said before, I think if you put yourself in that position, you're willing to do it. I think as long as you do it your way, no one can really criticise. You're doing it how you feel.
You're the one that's putting the time
You put
in.
your name forward to do it. I've been really fortunate with my parents. A lot of mine have got football backgrounds, so they kind of understand it, and they can sort of see
they'll appreciate it
where their child is, and if they don't always get the game time what they want, and like, yeah, I've been really lucky, and I respect that, and I definitely think they respect me. They don't always tell me mine. But going back to you said about using the energy app, I definitely think some of them give them some Haribos on the way over, because some of them are wild. But I find half term the worst, because they've been to like clubs or they've been doing activities with their mates all day, and then they come and then they are just
well, they're either wiped or they're wired, aren't they?
And it's a very fine line. When they're tired, they're grouchy and they don't want to listen, and at the other end, wow.
I've got a son and 2 daughters. With my son, it's like walking a dog. You have to burn
It
the
is.
energy off constantly.
You've got to,
But, you know, well, I'm going to bore you now. I'm so sorry. But, like, these statistics I think are interesting. Between the age of 3 and 5, and I think it's 6 and 7, somebody will probably correct me on that, there's a testosterone boost.
Yes, there is. No, that's a fact.
So basically what you're saying is that these boys are sat in school all day with this injection of testosterone where they can't release it. They've got to sit, they've got to be quiet, they've got to take their turn. and then they come to you guys and they just go absolutely nuts. But that's why it's so important to
Yeah.
run them and give them
Definitely.
a chance to express themselves and not stand them
Literally,
around, you know,
over
coaching
the
the
last-
life out of them.
Over the last couple of weeks, I've just gone in training and I've just got them straight into a game now.
Yeah.
Let them have 10 minutes because they all they want to do is play a game.
Yeah.
They ain't worried about doing, like I said, the rondos and all that. They just want the game. So I let them have the 10 minutes game, 20, 25 minutes of what I would like them to do, and then we go back into the game then, sort of thing. So
It's a good way of doing it. What do you do it as 2 halves? So the first, when you
I
start.
literally, because obviously my boy Cobes is normally there, and then Fox's boy is normally not far behind me, so it's 1-on-1, and then whoever turns up, one gets a bib, the other one goes non-bib, and we just keep feeding it in that way. Literally.
So you say you're doing stuff you want to work on with the kids.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to work on with them? What are you trying to achieve?
A lot now is a lot of triangles and using the ball because, like I said earlier, we've been lucky with, I got a few good ball players who can take 3 or 4 people on and run up and down that pitch. But now we've got the bigger pitch, they can't do it all the time. They can't. And a lot of like, it's really difficult because I'm quite old school. I like the ball byline and whipped in. But now with the no heading rule, it's kind of, we go back to on the deck and try and pass it.
What do you think about that no heading rule?
See, I was about to ask you. I like that the interviewee is the
Yeah.
interviewer.
Well,
It's tit
I'm
for
not
tat.
asking any
I-
controversial questions. I'm not answering that.
Personally, I would like to. I don't see. It's quite funny because this is going to come out on the pod before, but I would like to see an overhead rule. So I don't see how a ball is just bounced on the floor and headed would affect any child. It's the goal kicks out the hands. I can understand because that even hurts in senior football.
Yeah.
But general headers, and I found is some of the kids' feet get higher, so it gets more dangerous because a couple of kids duck out, and then the other kid come in, and it's I find it can be more dangerous.
Yeah,
I can see.
especially-
Don't get me wrong. I can see why they do it. I totally understand it, but I think it could be tweaked a little bit, almost to a ref's discretion.
I think it's that same thing though. You can't please everyone
No, you
because it's so hard to police like a no overhead rule because that ball could bounce for some
Yeah,
reason.
I
There,
get
there
that.
could be so many different things, and then you've got to pull it back for that.
Am I right in saying is it introduced in the Welsh FA? Grassroots?
Yeah,
Are they-
so they play headers.
They play
We
headers.
played headers in the Chepstow tournament, didn't we?
Hmm.
And it's well, I struggle with the Welsh game, to be honest. But certainly at the younger age.
What's the difference?
So when so for example, I coach under 6s as well. You've got smaller goals, which I don't think that's a bad thing, but there's no goalkeeper. So I've got my kids playing in the English game, and they play with a goalkeeper. They play 5v5, and they play with 7v7 goals. So it's like 12 by 6,
Yeah.
12 foot by 6 foot goal. But then you go into the Welsh leagues, and under 6s are then playing with essentially a pop-up goal, which is about 4 foot by 3 foot. It's much smaller. There's no goalkeepers, and it's 4v4.
I think they just try and get them playing. a
They
bit
try to
more,
get them
don't
playing, yeah. They only do kick-ins, no throw-ins, and actually that rule's been introduced in the
Yeah.
English game as well. So you got kick-ins up until under 7s, and then you're allowed to do under 8s, and then you're allowed to
Yeah.
do throw-ins.
That's right.
I hope that's right. God, I hate that stuff's on camera.
You're going to get corrected.
It doesn't matter
Yeah,
because I'm
it's
going to get
fine.
absolutely slated for saying the Welsh game's wrong.
Just turn them off. Well, I'm actually a big fan of keeping the ball down and playing it round. I think I headed the ball twice in 30 years, so I can't really comment.
That's where you get your looks from.
Thanks, mate. Might have been. But no, yeah, obviously the positions I played, I probably wasn't that important, and also I was very lucky to always have an enforcer alongside me that would kind of do the dirty work and win the ball for me, so I could go and play. But there was a lot of work done by Cardiff City. So I coached at Cardiff City in the academy back in 2008, 9, and there was a guy called Mark Neville who is now an advisor to the FA. I can't remember his exact title, but he's pretty senior, and he brought out this pack of activities where we were supposed to teach the kids to just play, make decisions, find space, move the ball. And it was all bred from the fact that they were producing Aaron Ramsey at the time. And he was coming through. And they noticed that they had a few really technically talented boys. So why would they have Aaron Ramsey getting on the end of crosses, making headers, doing all the things that he probably realistically wouldn't do as a professional footballer? It's not in his skill set. So they adapted a lot of what we did and made us coach all the way through the club. And there was a lot of kickback for it, but they produced a number of decent players coming out of there. They had, I can't remember, well, Joe Ledley, Chris Gunter. Obviously, Chris Gunter went on to do really well for Wales, semi-final of the Euros. So better than England that year, I believe, and he got knocked out by Iceland. But the point I'm making is, right, if you want to teach kids to play football, get them playing football. Keep the ball moving. And the goalkeeper thing I disagree with, because that's a specialist position. But, you know, you're never going to please everyone.
And not only that, a couple of kids that get used to playing outfield then don't want to go in. And then you get to an age where you found it as well, haven't you, to start off with. When you're rotating outfield in goal, a lot of them don't know, or don't want to do it.
They don't
for
want
a start.
to. No, I'm lucky now that I've got 2 players that, well, I've got 3 now in my team that are happy to do outfield and goal. So I just rotate between those 3.
So what are you moaning about?
Well, I'm not. I'm not moaning about that. I'm just moaning that there's no goalkeepers in the under 6s, and I've got 8 kids that want
it doesn't matter.
I've got 8 kids in my under 6s that want to play in goal. So we played in the Chepstow tournament, and one of the lads literally just stood in goal, and I said, "You've got to get up the pitch." Man, I want to be here. And that's it. That's it. That's literally
that was me.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of time for that kid.
Yeah. Oh, he's a great lad actually, and he's my best defender. But he's almost like a sweeper keeper sort of thing. He doesn't.
Oh, nice.
He doesn't stay in the goal. He wants to run out, wipe people out, get
manual
the ball up there.
lawyer.
He's very much like he's a
player.
beast. Yeah, he's a bit of a boy. He's got a mouth on him, to be fair. At his age already, he gives me some sort of stick. But I really enjoy them actually. The under 16
Characters at that age, isn't it?
They are.
So come on then, name your 3 best players. 3 best players of all time. I say all time. Let's do the last 30 years.
I was going to say because you could go.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, I think Wayne Rooney is in there.
Okay.
I think he deserves a shout because of everything that he can do on a pitch.
Who do you support?
Don't say that.
No, I just want to check if you're biased or not.
We're both Man United fans.
Yeah,
United.
Who's number 2?
Ryan Giggs, that Paul Scholes.
Tara, I'm not talking to you anymore. Go on,
Yeah.
Josh.
R9, 100%. R9 was,
Beast.
I think, even with his injuries, just an unbelievable player.
Yeah.
Because I play centre midfield myself, I really do appreciate Scholes. But obviously, being a Man United fan, I am Team Scholes. But I think you could chuck Lampard or Gerrard in there. I think they're all. But I, as well, my third, and again, being a Man United fan, but I really appreciate him, Ruud van Nistelrooy. I just loved him. Absolutely loved the way he played football, and the fact that he never scored a goal from outside of the box just proves what a poacher.
Yeah, but also some of his goals, you can watch some of them. He did go on the odd run.
Oh,
You know, he could have shot from distance, but he played football, and he was just really positionally good. I think.
But I think that, again, I really like Pablo Nedved as a kid.
Yeah.
He was always the one I bought on FIFA. You know,
Raul I bought all the time.
Zidane. Just I could give you a top 50 if you wanted to. What about yourself?
Obviously excluding myself. Zidane, obviously number 1. Del Piero, number 2. I absolutely loved Del Piero. I loved that Juventus team, 98 I think it was. And then as a Leeds fan, Tony Yeboah.
What? For the goal?
For the goals. What a striker, mate. My love of football and my love of Leeds was because of Tony Yeboah.
Yeah, no
the
fair.
Wimbledon volley. Oh, wow. What a player.
No, he's a boy actually.
Unfortunately, the best thing to come out of Leeds was Rio.
We don't talk about Rio, mate. Quick one from you two. How did you feel about the Euros? And how did you feel about Southgate going? 2 questions.
We rode our luck. Definitely rode our luck, I think. I think it's just, if it's easy for me to say if I was in that position, but I would just like to have seen us go for it and attacking football. And if we'd have lost earlier on and we went for it, I don't think anyone would be as critical. I think when you've got the likes of like Palmer sat on the bench, I'm a massive fan of Gordon. I just think unleash him. I think it's very, very defensive at times, and I didn't think we needed to be. And going on to Southgate, for me, a lot of people say I think he was the right man at the right time, but I think the time has come where I think fresh wouldn't be a bad thing.
I think, as much as we all say, if we had just gone for it, and at least tried, even if we lost 5-0. Nobody's going to be happy if you lose 5-0 just because you've had a go.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter if you've had 30 shots. If you lose 5-0, you're going to be
PJ,
happy.
you're the most honest Englishman I've met in a while. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Mate, honestly, as a Welsh fan, when we got to the semi-final, we had an open bus tour because we were so proud of the country. You know, you've got to remember as well, I know it's the home of football and all that stuff, but statistically, it's such a small country with a small population. And the fact that you've gone on to, is it a semi-final and 2 finals in the last 4 tournaments? That's really good going. When I know I joked about it earlier, but you went out to Iceland, like not so long ago. You had a really, and then Sam Allardyce came in, and there was all kinds of controversy around him. What I liked about Southgate was he brought a bit of gravitas and respect back to the English national team.
Yeah, I agree. And he brought some togetherness. But whilst I say that, I do think we could have gone for it a lot more. And I think that sometimes the subs came too late. I can't remember which game it was, but I thought we're actually being proactive and making subs before there was an issue, before we had gone a goal down. Yeah, I think Southgate did a very good job at keeping it solid and keeping them together, but perhaps could have used the squad a lot better than he did.
Yeah.
I think him staying, yes, we've done really well, and he has done really well, and I'm probably going to eat my words, and I'm going to look like Gary Neville, but I think his time's probably done.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? And just to play devil's advocate here, and to play the flip side of that, you know, if you do have a period now where you're unsuccessful, you're all going to be saying we wish Southgate was back, because sometimes cup football requires a boring brand of football.
Well, it
Look at
does.
Italy.
Yeah, you've got to look at the teams that win are often the most pragmatic teams. They're often the most ones. They stay back. They sit back. They don't concede goals.
Yeah.
But then Spain went on to show that does look like they played some fantastic football. They used youth. They were really attacking. They were pretty to
without
watch.
doubt the best team.
Yeah. What I will say though, whilst playing not at our best, we were still the second best team in that tournament, and I think that's quite scary.
I went there. I had tickets for the final, so I was there live. And I will say that watching the game and watching the way that they set up and watching Luke Shaw, I wasn't sure about that decision at all. I think he won his first 6 or 7 battles with Yamal.
Yeah.
And the flip side of the argument is people would say Southgate maybe was a bit too late. He would make the changes too late. But ultimately, whenever he made a change, it resulted in the goal, like almost immediately.
Yeah.
So you could argue he made the right changes at the right times. And I think the thing we need to remind ourselves as well is the golden generation. That's like when we named players, right? No one's named an English player now. You never even considered it. It was players from 10, 15 years ago, maybe our age, but maybe because they were so exceptional. They didn't even qualify for the Euros in 2008. That team.
No, I know. It's a tragedy, really,
Scholes,
isn't it?
Gerrard, Lampard.
But then
Beckham.
everyone blames that on the formation, don't they? 'Cause was that Sven at the time?
No, it was McLaren, I think.
McLaren.
Yeah.
So but everything was 4-4-2. We were 4-4-2 all the time and couldn't use all of those players in the same form.
But they were trying to play attacking football and it just didn't work. They needed to change formation. Southgate has changed formation, played a boring brand of football, 2 finals, and you're not happy. Cheer up.
I think we're the Welsh fans.
Oh, give them an open bus tour. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Your next manager's going to be useless.
What if there was a female manager at international level?
So yeah, obviously this season there was a female coach, head coach at Forest Green Rovers, and the work with Emma Hayes and the equal pay in America is really shone a light on the quality of female coaches. And the States are slightly ahead in terms of this anyway. The female football team in America has been super successful for a long time.
Yeah, they're very good.
And it's great to see that coming here, especially selfishly as a dad with 2 daughters. It's great to see the real emphasis and focus being placed on the women's game. What I would say is that I'm very fortunate that a close friend of mine and the current vice president of the US men's national team, Oguchi Onyewu, used to play for AC Milan and Newcastle. Research him, really, really cool guy. He recently spoke to me about Em Hayes and what a great job she's doing out there. So I think talking about somebody like her who's had real sustained success in the women's game and is now on an international level, it's only probably a matter of time before she gets an opportunity to transition across if she wishes to. I mean, at the end of the day, there's equal pay now and there's a huge opportunity for the female game to really kick on. So she might not want to come across to the men's game.
No.
It's certainly recognised more, isn't it?
Yeah. Much more, and it's building much more of a fan base. I saw the women's the women's game's been watched more than the men's game in some places.
And I've noticed locally, a few more girls' team are being introduced.
Yeah, well, we're trying to at Broadwell.
Yeah.
It's something we wanted to do. We interviewed our chairman, and it's something he's talked about a lot, and we are going to try and do that. But again, it's just getting people in.
Facilities is a big
Yeah.
one. Facilities is certainly a big one, but
Yeah,
we may get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. One day we'll find. Well, when the pod kicks off, we'll just buy a club and we'll sort it all out. Simple as that. I think that about wraps everything up, doesn't it? I think it's been a great interview, mate. Actually, I can't believe everything you've done. To be fair, I'm pretty in awe of you. Not lie. I know that you're buzzing about that. So thanks very much for coming along, mate.
And guys, before we go, huge thank you to Grassroots coaches like yourselves. Unbelievable job that you do. You know, opportunities for myself and all the kids in the community, thanks to people like you. So really, really, a lot of credit goes to you, and a big thanks.
No, thanks, mate. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cheers. And with that, it's up the blues from me.
it's up the clarets for me.
Up the wall.